My name is Lily and I'm a theatre, set and costume designer, and I've been working in this industry for around 12 years. I design mostly plays, but I also run workshops and events in and around set and costume making and design. Thank you so much for taking part in this workshop. It's going to be a two-part workshop looking at how we might design and create our very own paper costume using found materials that we might have around the house, particularly looking at paper and also card and other recyclables. So this might include toilet rolls, egg boxes, newspapers and magazines, any other scrap paper that you might have lying around the house. We're going to be looking a little bit at some of the artefacts from the Hastings Museum for inspiration, as well as how some fashion designers have used paper and card to create their pieces and collections. In the first workshop, we will look a little bit also at the history of how paper's been used in pattern creation for costumes, and then we will start sketching our what will be our final pieces. I'll then leave you to get on with that before the second workshop, which will look at the details and adding finesse to your costumes, and also how you might fasten them so they can be worn and photographed and shared. So to kick us off, let's look at why paper and card is such a great medium for creating costumes. In this first image on the left-hand side, you can see some examples of what are called patterns. A pattern is the template from which the parts of a piece of clothing are traced onto fabric before being cut out and then assembled. Patterns are most often made of paper and are sometimes made also of more durable materials like cardboard if they need to withstand repeated usage. The process of making these patterns is called pattern cutting, and designers will keep a library of all their patterns to refer back to when remaking items or tweaking the design of them. In this second image, you can see the next phase of making a costume, where the designer will piece together the pattern they have made onto a mannequin in order to look at and refine its shape and form. The paper pattern is often used as a template for cutting cheap plain fabric such as calico or muslin, which is then fitted onto the mannequin. We call this working out garment a toile. You will see here too some examples of paper toiles which work brilliantly as the paper holds its shape and form and can be manipulated easily. It's also a very cheap way of figuring things out without wasting expensive fabrics. Let's now look at an artefact from the Hastings Museum. Here you'll see pictures of a suit of samurai armour with very intricate pattern and plate detailing. Look closely at how these details have been achieved and think about how they might be replicated in paper or card form. Here are some of the materials that I found very useful in constructing costumes made of paper. So in the top left corner, we've got various different tapes. So there's some masking tape, some sellotape, double-sided tape, which can be really useful if you have it. If you don't worry. You can just fold tape back on itself. And then some parcel tape. Going along now to the right, there's also some glue. If you do have PVA or even a hot glue gun, that could also be very useful. A stapler, again excellent for quick joining of things and gives you a nice sturdy fastening. Down here there's some string, which again is good for binding things together. You can use it in the same way that you'd use thread to punch holes in things and then sew through them. There's some wire here and some pipe cleaners, again good for strengthening and for creating bends in things, and in the same way as the string you can use it to sew things together with it. And then in the bottom left hand side here we've got a craft knife, some scissors and some wire cutters to cut the wire. Here we have some examples of the types of paper and card recyclable materials that hopefully you'll be able to find around your house and assemble for making your costume. Up here we've got some cardboard box card, which is corrugated and great for strength and bending and creating sort of base structures of things. Here there's an inside tube from some kitchen roll, same as loo paper roll. Here we've got some newspaper, up here an egg box, some tissue paper. then some scraps of paper, the old printed out stuff, any pages from notebooks and sketchbooks you might have had, even old books that you don't want anymore, you could recycle the pages of to make your costume. And in the bottom left hand corner here is a page from a magazine, which just gives us another texture and also can provide us with some colour. As with all of these things, the more that you can assemble, the better, because it'll just give you more scope for your design. And you can also find other packaging items, boxes, any other forms of paper and card that you might find around your house. It's all going to be useful. So before we start looking at the design and making of our final costume, I thought it would be good for us to do a quick fire exercise where we each make our own paper ruff or collar using some of the materials we've just looked at together. So this isn't a test, this is just a way for us to loosen up our heads and our hands and to get thinking about how we use paper to construct wearable items. Here you'll see some examples of paper ruffs that have been made by fashion designers and costume makers. Use this as inspiration to make your own paper collar or ruff with any materials that you've assembled. You have 5 minutes, and the only rule is that you must be able to wear your creation without holding on to it. Be brave and be bold. Your 5 minutes starts now. Here is a step-by-step guide of the ruff that I made using 2 sheets of scrap A4 paper, some sellotape and some scissors. Now we've got ourselves warmed up, it's time to start thinking about the design of our main costume. I always find it's useful to get pen or pencil to paper first, so do some little sketches and write some notes on what I'm hoping to achieve, just as something that I can use as a guide and possibly to refer back to if I get stuck along the way. I've attached an image that you'll see after I've stopped speaking of 2 figure outlines that you can use as a template if it helps, and we'll also provide a link to that so you can download it or take a screen grab and print that out if that's easy enough to do. Remember when doing your sketches that they are just to be used as a helpful tool for you, so don't feel under any pressure to do them in a certain way. It's just so you can have a record of what you hope to achieve. Be bold with your shapes and the scale of your piece. Take into account what materials you've managed to assemble and think about how best they might form your costume. Are you going to accessorize your costume? So might you make a pair of eyelash heavy glasses like I've made? Might you make yourself another ruff of some description? Might you make a hat or a fascinator, something to be worn on the head? Or even you might have a stab at making a pair of paper shoes. I'm going to give you some time now to start doing some sketches and some thinking. And while you do this, I'm going to put up here a variety of images that I hope will inspire you and also relate to the materials that you might have gathered to help you give you some sort of direction in what you're doing. Here are some of the sketches I've done showing the aims for my costume. I'll make 3 elements, a skirt, a ruff and a fascinator, using mostly cardboard boxes with some magazine pages for the ruff and tied into the fascinator as well. I may change things slightly in the making process, but at least I have this as a starting point for my costume. So hopefully you'll have managed to get some ideas down onto paper now in the form of sketches or just some notes, or maybe some little collages using some of the materials that you have to hand. Before I go and let you get on with the making of your costume, I thought it might be useful just to quickly have a look at some ways of joining card and paper, which will help you in the making process. Here you'll see some examples of different attachment and strengthening techniques using card. You can refer back and pause on this page if you get stuck for how to join something together while you're making your costume. Time for me to stop talking now and let you get on with making your costume. Remember, at any point you can refer back to any of the images and references that have been shown in this first workshop and pause them and use them for inspiration. Remember to be brave and bold with your designs, think outside the box and try and push the boundaries and limits of the materials you've gathered together from your house. I'll see you next time for workshop number 2.